Yikes. Whew. All right, welcome to the lens review for the Fuji 8-16. Let's get started. It's heating up here pretty quickly, so I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible. I've been using this lens for the last 2 months on approximately 6 jobs, and it's coming considerably more handy than I initially anticipated it would. It's also quickly becoming one of my favorite portrait lenses. So I'm at the Maryland side of the Great Falls today, being filmed on a Fuji 10-24 on an X-T3. This is typically the kind of place where you would bring a really wide lens to take some photos. And the only real competition this specific lens has within the Fuji ecosystem is this 8-16. I used to have the Laowa 9mm, which was pretty good for what it was, but when I started doing more and more video work, it became a little problematic, especially because of all the really heavy vignetting it seems to have on the Fuji X system that I didn't have when I was using the Canon EOS M50 at the time. So if you're a Fuji owner, these are the 2 lenses that you probably, I don't know if everyone would be considering them, but these are your 2 ultra-wide options. Now the 10-24 has been a standard for the past couple of years. It's a phenomenal lens. I personally love it. I've shot maybe 80% of my videos using that particular lens. It's great because it has optical image stabilization. Distortion on it's okay. Distortion correction is pretty good. It's not as good as the correction they do even at the 16 side with the 16-1.4. And this recently came out last year. Initially, I really wanted to try to rent it. Couldn't find anyone that would carry it. And it's one of Fuji's, everyone's nicknaming them their monster glass. First monstrous thing you'll notice about it is the price. It is $2,000 or was $2,000. You'll always find some kind of promo right now. A couple of months ago, before the new Japanese fiscal year, dropped down to $1,500, and I was still convinced I didn't really need this lens. So I didn't pick it up then, but then ordered it when I needed something a little faster for conventions. Typically they just don't have very good lighting. It's like kind of like a warehouse setting. And you can't control the lights all that much. People get nervous when you shine a light on them and you're doing an interview. So this would have been the easiest option, and it was. I mean, typically the worst way to light a scene better is to go with a faster lens, but when you can't control the lighting in an area, you don't really have too many options at your disposal. The only real complaint I have about this lens, you can probably see it's all scratched up because I have put it through its paces, but I actually almost returned it because of this focus ring. It is super cheap. It feels like something really plasticky, and it isn't comparable even to what the 10-24 has, a much older and much cheaper lens. Not entirely certain who was responsible for making this decision. You're good, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Not entirely certain who was responsible for making this decision, but on a $2,000 lens, it was not a good one. So that's really the main complaint I have about this from a usability standpoint. Beyond that, it would have been nice if it had OIS, but I mean, I understand why they probably didn't put it in. Future X mount bodies are probably all going to have IBIS, especially for the video shooters. And this is a super ultra wide lens, so the shakes, whether you're at the wide or the telephoto end of the lens, not really something you're going to notice unless you're doing something like this, in which case you probably need to go see a doctor. I've probably used the 10-24 ever since I got this once, and the 16 never. So I might actually be willing to part with that lens pretty soon. The other inherent disadvantage with this is you can see that it has one of those fixed petal design lenses. As a videographer, you know that ND filters are essentially your lifeblood, especially if you're using a DSLR for video. Now, the majority of them don't have internal NDs, so we have to use the caps on the outside. And while right now you're taking a look at what I'm using on the 10-24, and this is pretty standard when it comes to NDs. This one's actually a little bigger because I'm using a step-up ring since I don't have $2,000 to drop on ND filters of different sizes. And it's a little blown out here because of the ND filter I'm using on the 8-16, and I don't really have too many options because if you take a look at it, this is how big this thing is. And for comparison, this is a standard ND filter. Now, this isn't inherently the fault of this particular lens. It's all petal style lenses. They kind of have, your only options are to use this type of ND filter or use no ND filter. Landscape photographers, they're already used to the issue. Videographers, pretty much unprepared when it comes to this. And you have to keep in mind that if you're using this predominantly for video, you are going to have to invest another $300, $320 into this system, which comes with the adapter, a 3-stop ND, and a CPL. And I don't think there is a 6-stop just yet. I'm actually going to message the company pretty soon, because even with this 3-stop on right now, we did get some clouds. You can see everything is pretty blown out at 2.8, moving up, and it really doesn't start to balance out until you're at f8, which for right now is okay, since I'm not really recording anything that requires depth of field. But it's really nice to get every last advantage you can out of a lens if you're spending $2,000 on it. And it's a pretty unique look to get some type of depth of field by using a lens this wide. So autofocus on both of these is incredible. Tack sharp on this one, even when it's wide open. I absolutely love this lens just for the autofocus. One of its huge advantages over the considerably cheaper Laowa lens. Laowa, I have no idea if I'm even pronouncing that right. The other big advantage is that this is weather sealed, which is going to be a big deal if you shoot outdoors, if you take photos outdoors or during the rain or anything. 1024 can handle a couple of sprinkles, no problem, but when it comes to a downpour, you really don't want to be caught out in the rain with a lens that isn't weather sealed, because even if the body's weather sealed, you're going to damage that too once it breaks through here and soaks the sensor and whatever else is in there. All that being said, this is my real world review on the Fuji 8-16. It's about twice as expensive as the 1024. Is it worth it for my purposes? Yes. I think that if you're a working professional, you would prefer this one over the 1024. If you're a pretty serious enthusiast, you're going to enjoy it as well over the 1024. The only time I really had an issue where I had to use the 1024 over the 8-16 was when I was filming something on a model. I was filming the bridge on a Star Trek Enterprise model in DC, and I had to kind of hold the camera away from me. I couldn't put a gimbal there just because of how everything was positioned. And it was a little too shaky. It was probably tired at that point in the day. And I had to slap on the 1024 and just deal with the grain at the time, which this, by the way, again, big advantage, f2.8 versus f4. If I had to pick one of these lenses, I would definitely go with this one, because the 1024 isn't weather sealed and I'm outside all the time, so it's automatically disqualified. Other than that, I would suggest that unless you can find a really used 1024, maybe save up your money. Nowadays, you can actually rent this lens. The big problem prior was I couldn't rent this lens. Rent it out for a weekend, give it a shot, see how you feel about it. And you can find the 1024. I found the one I'm using now used on Facebook Marketplace for like 500 bucks. So secondhand market, as long as the thing isn't too banged up, you'll be fine. You don't have to buy everything new. I don't think you'll find too many of these on the secondhand market just yet, and I don't think anyone who buys it is really going to be all that willing to let go of it unless they're switching systems entirely. We're here for some bonus footage now, just to kind of show you the image quality during video and what it looks like without the image stabilization. I'm not going to use any warp stabilizer. This is essentially going to be the raw footage straight out of the camera. And, oops. In a turner profile. Forgot to turn the F-log on. I mean, there's no barricade here, so I'm assuming we're good, right?
Well, it says don't.
I didn't read that. No one read that. Jeez, man. Ugh. All right, so right now I don't have an ND filter, and you can see that a lot of the highlights are pretty close to being blown. It's all right now, but the histogram is kind of tilted to the right. But it's like, look at that field of view. There are kayakers right there. And another guy floating right there. And it's just not something you can get with any other lens. Even the 1024, there's a lot less than you would see. So I never understand why people would come all the way out here to enjoy the view and then just leave the trash they bring with them. Whoop, wasn't my ankle. Yeah, these shoes were not designed to climb. That is so lazy. I don't think we're in trouble, but they are kind of slowing down here. Ah, we're good. So this is probably about as far as I should go. Yeah, those rapids look kind of wild. This will give you an idea of, again, the type of stabilization. Another thing worth noting is that I could bring this one. I'm afraid to bring the 1024. This is weather sealed. The 1024 is not. So you also have to factor that in. And that's just another perk of having this lens. If you have any specific questions when it comes to this, feel free to drop it in the comments below or reach out to me on my social channels. I will be tagging photos that I'm using this lens on for the next few weeks just to give you some perspective. I'm gonna say goodbye, but I'm going to end this video with a couple of comparisons, trying to hold these cameras side by side without looking like a complete psychopath in front of everyone on this path. And just it'll give you an idea of how much wider. You know what, let's do it right here. Oof, gotta stop this guy up. To 7.1, similar exposure, side by side. You can see that in this frame, you get a lot more of the sky, a lot more of the sides. You can almost see way past the, actually you can see past the cliff on the right side. And on the left, almost where the river goes down. And again, it's just really nice to have. It's a very unique perspective. The photos I've been able to take with these, I just couldn't replicate it on the 1024. And everything is tack sharp on this at all f-stops. F4 and above on the 8-16, considerably sharper than even the 1024, which is a pretty sharp lens. Not that sharpness is really like the biggest thing that matters, but it's worth noting. And that's it. I'll see what else I can grab on the way back to the car.
I did run out of time, faced with your advice to get back in mind. A struggle to suffice, weighed down by all your pride. Had to break my stride and get back on my feet, with nothing left to ensure.
Pretty big Fuji fanboy, which means that I do love these cameras and I will give them the benefit of the doubt a lot, but they are horrible for vlogging. Either way, here's a vlogging test because I know someone's going to ask about it. You can almost see yourself in the reflection of the small ND. This is the 1024 right now. You can see the OIS at work. I don't know. Hopefully I'm exposed properly here, but I don't think so because I'm walking in and out of the shade. But yeah, image stabilization's on, taking my T-Rex steps, so you're gonna see some shake. The one advantage, I guess, with the 8-16, even though it doesn't have OIS, is that it's a little heavier. So it's not so bad when it comes to the shake. Take a look. And this is it stopped up right now. How's it going? Thanks to the giant ND filter on it, I can actually see a really good reflection of myself. I should take a photo of this. But it is pretty heavy, probably a dumb and very expensive vlogging setup for anyone gonna do it. But if you can casually drop $4,000 on a vlogging setup, let me know if you're hiring. I just realized that I left the shutter on this one at the slow-mo rate, like 1/240th. So I stopped it up just like the other. And the other clip probably looks like really clippy, but don't worry about it. That's only because I set the shutter wrong. Currently sweating up a storm, so I'm donezo. Talk to you guys later.